Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for Simplify and Enhance HR Processes with SAP SuccessFactors Employee Central, sponsored and presented by Illumity HCM. Questions may be submitted anytime by typing in the Ask a Question text field and clicking Submit, and Illumity HCM will follow up with a response following the webcast. Now, without further delay, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to our presenter today, Rebecca Murray.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Today, we will be taking a look at SAP SuccessFactors Employee Central. And it's actually quite a large piece of functionality for us to cover. So today, we'll just be getting into a little bit of a teaser. We'll be looking at the basics of Employee Central, how Employee Central can help us achieve clean and valid data, employee data, how we can facilitate employee data changes with self-service functionality incorporated with workflows. And then we'll actually spend most of our time looking at the system and have a real lifetime demo. My name is Rebecca Murray. I am a managing partner at Illumity HCM. I've been doing HCM transformations for organizations for over 10 years, and I really enjoy working with companies, helping them get their business processes up and running and into a system such as SAP SuccessFactors to optimize their HR business processes. My organization, Illumity HCM, is a member of the Greater Illumity Group. We cover employee and business data needs across the entire business space. We work primarily in North America, but support organizations globally. And we were named SAP North America Partner Excellence Award winners for 2018 in the emerging enterprise space. So we have quite a great reputation working in the organizational data management fields. All right, let's dive right in and get into SAP SuccessFactors Employee Central. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term SuccessFactors, that is SAP's cloud-based HCM solution. And it really covers everything that you would need from an HR standpoint for managing your employee data, from core HR needs into talent management, recruiting, learning solutions, everything soup to nuts. One of my favorite attributes about SuccessFactors is that it is scalable to meet the size and needs of your organization. And so my company, Illumity, we run SAP SuccessFactors internally, and we have about 350 employees. And SAP SuccessFactors themselves run this product, and they have close to 100,000 employees globally. So you can see it can really be tailored to meet the needs of organizations, both large and small. In terms of what's included in the SuccessFactors product suite, core HR, which is down here in the bottom left-hand corner, is what we'll be looking at today. But you can see it also covers things that we would traditionally consider to be talent management, such as performance goals, compensation, recruiting and onboarding. Our solution is modular, meaning you can pick and choose the pieces of the solution you need or want when you need or want them. So there are no underlying dependencies or pre-qualifications that you need to have in place. They can all be used standalone or together in some combination. The data is shared across the board, so it's more powerful that way. One of the nice things about our solution is that it's really geared towards end users, for people actually being able to use and interact with the system. So to that end, the system contains user-friendly interfaces and guided processes. So when an employee or manager or business user goes in to access the system, they're prompted with guides to help them achieve whatever outcome brought them to the system. So
Rebecca, sorry, I don't believe you've changed your screen yet. Are you perhaps paused?
Oh, I may be paused. Are you here with me now?
Thank you. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So guided processes and user-friendly interfaces scattered throughout the system. And for those of you who missed the first few slides, you didn't miss much. You missed my picture and my smiling face, which may or may not be a loss, but you'll be able to grab those slides from the hr.com website. In terms of mobile functionality, that's giving your users a new and different means for interacting with your system. We do have a fully enabled mobile application. So your end users will be able to put in their leave requests, approve vacation requests, find colleagues, view their training, manage recruiting requisitions. All of that is available directly in the mobile application. Okay, so the module we're looking at today, we call Employee Central. That's where we store and maintain all of the master data for our employees. So all of the data relevant to their personal information, things like names and addresses, as well as all of their employment information. So their job title, their manager, their division and department, and those things. And within Employee Central, one of the things that makes us very unique is not only do we offer a global solution in that we can store and maintain for employees anywhere globally, we offer localized solutions within that larger template for over 89 different countries. That means that all of the local data, compliance, and reporting requirements in 89 different countries are supported directly within Employee Central. So for instance, in Germany, they tend to store information about religious affiliation. Here where I am in the United States, we would never dream of storing that piece of information. But because that's a requirement over in Germany, if you were to pull up the profile or the employee record for an employee in Germany, you would be prompted to maintain that piece of information. Whereas if you pulled up the record for an employee in the United States or Canada, you would not be prompted for that piece of information. So the system dynamically knows what is required in each of those 89 different countries and walks the user through accordingly. It's pretty powerful stuff when you think about it. Here are some of the baseline pieces of functionality that come with our core HR offering. HR transactions, everything is effective dated. So not only are we storing today's current information, but we're keeping all of your historical records, data changes, pay changes, job changes from the past. So you can report on today's information, but you can also report on a range of time or a period of time as well to get a full history. We offer full self-service functionality, which we'll talk about in just a minute. We offer position management, time management, reporting, and compliance. So really everything that you may need in terms of having a full and complete core HR solution. So our next topic is, how does this get us a clean and valid employee data set? And you may be wondering, well, why do we need that? Or isn't it just assumed that we need that? Or maybe we do the best we can with what we have. I read a survey once by Mark Smith with the Ventana Group back in 2012, and he reported that 40% of business initiatives failed to achieve their target benefit directly due to poor data quality. So if you think of that number, slightly less than half, and your goals or initiatives related to your organization, to your employees, to strategically planning for your employees, you can see that with not having good data, you're already starting behind the 8 ball. So not only are your strategic plans or initiatives at risk, but things like reporting and local compliance reporting may also be at risk as well. So that is why we need good, clean HR data. And Employee Central will help us get there because we can set the system up so that different data fields are validated, values are proposed, formats are required, selection sets and drop-down lists can be dispersed throughout the system. Every type of data change that's recorded in the system isn't just recorded by itself, it's given an event reason so that we can report on why things are changing. So it's not enough nowadays to have a list of people who turned over last quarter. We want to know why those people turned over. We can look for trends. Is there a problem in a certain division or a certain department or with a certain manager? And we can look for trails of information that help lead us there, that we can strategically be proactive in preventing additional turnover. We can also set up system alerts when fields are expiring or when data was entered incorrectly or improperly. People can review information before it gets confirmed. So just lots of different ways that the system can be tailored to help us drive good, clean employee data. And here are just some screenshots with some of those pieces laid out and identified for us. You can see on the left-hand side, under national ID, we have country-specific formatting for that social security number. If we were looking at a social insurance number from Canada, that number would be formatted differently. And I know for those of you in Canada, you do that math calculation to verify the numbers. That would be performed as well. Just below that, you'll see examples of country-specific address formatting. I've got both a US and a Turkish address in place. And you can see that the city, state, and zip code format on the top address in the United States is different than the address format for the Turkish address in the second position. The right-hand side, required fields, drop-down list, state formatting, all of those pieces help us ensure that the data we're putting in our system is the data we're hoping to receive. Okay, let's talk about why having valid or validities and checks and rules built into the system is important. And that's because in an ideal world, we'll be looking to our employees and managers to use the system via self-service to keep that data up to date. I like to think of employees and managers as owners of that data. I mean, no one knows more about their home address than the employee herself, and no one knows more about a job change than the manager that's facilitating the job change. So while they can relate to us in HR, those data changes, they can send us an email, they can fill out a form, they can stop us in the hallway on the way back from lunch. Really, those people know what information is current, what's valid, when it's changing, all those types of things. So having them have access to the system through self-service means that they can directly own and manage that data. It doesn't mean that it's without oversight. We'll see on the next slide the concept of workflows, where those proposed data changes, once they're input, they can go through a review and approval process. But realistically speaking, the managers and employees in some way convey to you, or should convey to you, that a data change is needed or has been made. And why not just have them convey that to you through the system itself? And all those data validity checks and field formatting that we saw just a few screens ago will help them enter in that data and complete the process efficiently. On the workflow notification side, this is where you get kind of your oversight or your purview into the system. And if you think of a workflow as kind of a passing or routing of data notifications from one person to the next, think of it as the old paper form that someone used to fill out and submit, and it went from person to person and got signed off or reviewed and then finally stamped and confirmed. That same concept is how we get workflow notifications in the system. Because as I make an entry into the system, I can have it follow those same routing, or that same approval path, or that same notification plan. So I'm not losing any of that functionality. If anything, I may have the opportunity to reduce some of those steps because the system will automatically take care of some of the management and behind the scenes work for me. So even though we're permitting self-service functionality, we're not losing any of the oversight or ability to control the data itself. And here are just a few screenshots that exhibit this process. On the left-hand side, we have one of those guided processes. So it's a manager self-service change, where the manager is putting in for a job change for a team member. You can see the new value is highlighted in red. The old value is scratched out in gray. And once that's submitted into the system, the workflow process initiates. And anyone who needs to approve the request or be notified of the request is pulled into that process. And the system just automatically kicks that off and delivers it where it needs to go. Okay. Normally right now I would ask if there were any questions before I switch over to the demonstration. But since we're on a one-way webinar, I'm just going to go ahead and get logged in and continue on with the live demonstration portion. So I will go full screen in just a moment. But before I do that, I wanted to take just a moment and point out to you that this is just a web page. I'm in a web browser. I've got an address at the top. So as long as I have access to a web browser and the internet, or my mobile device and the internet, I can access this solution. There's no software that needs to be installed or no additional product that needs to be run in order for my team members to be able to access this solution. It's available in an entirely web-based format. So here we are on the home page of my SuccessFactors system. We are logged in today as Carla Grant. She's our test employee. And we have a series of data tiles laid out in front of us. And the system, when you log in, it validates who you are and recognizes what role you have within the system. So Carla happens to be an employee, a manager, and she has some HR responsibilities. So the tiles that are laid out here in front of her reflect the work that she does. If she's not working in a particular area or have any responsibility there, then those pieces just won't show for her. So across the top, we have this to-do section. This lays out any tasks that require her attention or her action. So it could be something as simple as reviewing requisition plans. It could be that she's going in to do performance reviews. It could be that one of her team members has submitted a time off request. So in this particular instance, for our demonstration today, we are just looking at the core HR piece. So I'm going to kind of bypass explanations of some of the talent management modules, such as recruiting and onboarding, and just focus on the core piece. So if you see me jumping over some sections, you'll know that that's why. Underneath my to-do list, I have this section. I can create specific tiles for any purpose that I'd like. So in addition to having this library of pre-delivered tiles, I can create my own. So some of my customers in the past have put up, greetings from their CEO, announcements about the holiday party, reminders for benefits open enrollment, and you can put out links right to the benefit enrollment site or to the plan documents. So you can really be as creative as you want to with this concept of creating some of these custom tiles. The idea being, from the HR standpoint, if we could put as much stuff related to HR, to our employees, to engagement here as possible, then this can be one single place for people to come to access anything that's related to HR. So even if it's something outside of what we offer in the system, you can still link to it or step to it from here. And hopefully that will cut down on the number of calls and requests you have for how do I find the link to this or how do I get to that, because you can direct them to this single source site, and from there they can access everything they need. You'll notice that this background is a dark blue and I have a logo on the side. You can brand this system with your company and logos and put in some background images and really build this out so that when your team members log in, it's a site that's familiar and comfortable to them. And they know that this is a site that you have tailored and provided specifically for their needs. As we move down this page just a little bit more, you'll see we have 3 main sections: my info, my team, and my specialty. And those are breakouts based on my role in the organization. I'm an employee first, so I can come in and look at my time off. I can review careers that may be open that I'm interested in. As a manager, I have the ability to manage my team members. So I can do that by viewing my org chart, jumping quickly to my favorite reports, managing team absences, or managing my team directly. Anywhere I've got a red number, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that requires my attention, if you will. And I can see that several of my team members have tasks in their to-do list that are overdue. And this allows me to have insight into that. So of course we're in a demo system, so there are very many things that are overdue for many of my team members. But as I click back and forth, I can see what it is that's overdue. I can give them a little nudge to remind them or strongly encourage that they complete that request. I can see any activities that they're working on. I get their basic contact information. I can go right into their employee records, or I can click here to take action. And any permissions that I have related to manager self-service, whether that's to request a job change or spot bonus, I can go in and facilitate those activities right from here. And then of course, if I happen to work on the HR side and I have administrative tasks that require my attention, I'll be able to link to them quickly from that bottom left-hand side marked My Specialty. Now the system is available in over 46 different languages. So if you happen to be a multinational or global organization, we make it easy for your team members globally to interact with our system. So let's go ahead and look at the core HR piece. I could use any of my quick links on the dashboard, but I'm going to go ahead and select this main drop-down in the left-hand corner. And again, because we are in a demo system, we have lots of different features and functionality turned on. But I am going to focus today on just some of these core pieces that we talked about in the slides. So first up, we have our company information. And for most organizations, that usually starts off with an org chart. And I'm happy to say that we offer 3 different iterations or kind of perspectives on the traditional org chart. And the first is the very basic and very common people-based org chart. So here is my user, Carla Grant. I can see, based on this little number tally at the bottom, 7-46, that she has 7 direct reports and 46 total roll-up reports. And if I were to go down and click into her branch of this org chart, I could count up all these people and it would total up to 46 across the board. Anytime I see a person that's of interest to me, I can click on that employee and get their business card view. So that gives me a basic snapshot of contact information, who their manager is, how many people are within their area of responsibility. And because I happen to be the manager, I have manager self-service access to his records. So again, I have that take action drop down here where I can go in and process any of these data requests that I would like to, or jump into some of his records and review information. When you log in and the system recognizes who you are and what your relationship is to different people, it grants you different levels of access to their information based on your business requirements. So you may have some very broad requirements where managers can see everything about their team members, or you may have some more restrictive requirements where maybe they just see certain pieces of information and can perform certain activities. And that's fine. The brilliant thing about this solution is that it can really be tailored quite easily, actually, to meet those business requirements. Now, you're probably counting across the board here and thinking, Carla is only supposed to have 7 direct reports, and yet here we have an 8th person hanging off to the side. Well, Thomas Clark, it may be hard to see on the web share, but you can see he has a dotted line connecting him back to Carla. So he is not a direct report, he is a matrix report. And we have the option of showing matrix reports on the org chart or leaving them off depending on our business requirements. And we can take this org chart and we can traverse up and down. We can search for certain people and find their particular branches. And depending on our permissions, we can print it, we can export it, we can send it to a PDF or PowerPoint. So lots of capabilities with this particular view. And again, this is a person-to-person based org chart. Our second iteration of the org chart is this position-based org chart. And it gives us somewhat of, I don't want to say an inverse view, but almost an inverse view, in that it doesn't focus on the people, but rather the position or the role they play within our organization. So this is actually Carla's role. She's the VP of Sales, and her name is listed there because she's the incumbent holder. But I could click into this record and see not only who the incumbent is, but everyone who held the role before she held it. So I get a full history on that particular position as well. One thing that you'll see here that we were not able to see on the people org chart is this particular vacancy. You can see for this director of sales in Philadelphia, we have no person tagged to it right now. There is no incumbent holder, 0 out of 1 FTEs. So this is showing me that I have a vacancy within my team. And that's something that you can't see on a people-to-people based org chart, but it's something that is very visible and very informative on the position-based org chart. The ability to see and plan for positions, regardless of whether someone is holding that position or not. And the third type of organizational chart view is a company structure view. And we actually have a lot of flexibility with how we set these up. I went in and created just a very simple one. And this will allow us to start from Carla and her division and view the divisions and departments that roll up to hers. So this is an organizational structure view. These particular departments roll up to her division. I can click on these and see the employees that are members of these departments. I can see the history there. So as people have come and gone in and out of that particular department, I can see that information as well. So for those who are used to seeing a structure-based view for the org chart, we make that available as well. Okay, let's jump into the employee record. And we do that by selecting employee files from the dropdown. Alternatively, we could have clicked on any of the people or positions that were in any of those org charts. This view that you have in front of us is Carla's employee record. And what I can see and access here is controlled by my authorizations in the system. And you can see that her record is broken up into a few different subsections. And we tailor and customize the subsections that are relevant to you or that are of interest to you. And within each section, we kind of put together these different, for lack of better words, data portlets or data blocks. And when we set up your system, at least for the first time, there are all these libraries and catalogs full of data blocks. And you can go through and pick the ones that you want to show up on your employee profiles. And within each of these data blocks, there are libraries and catalogs of fields, and you can go in and pick the different fields that you want to have available. Now you may be saying, we need a section that doesn't show up here, or we need some fields that aren't in that library. And the system actually leaves placeholders for us to put in customer-specific portlets and customer-specific fields. Just about anywhere we can put them. In fact, they leave so many placeholders, you could put more than 100 different custom fields in each one of these sections. So regardless of the information that you hope to gather, we'll be able to keep it and store it for you. And any of those validations or data checks that need to be associated with it can be associated with it. Now you'll notice a few different things that we saw in some of those screenshots in the slides. One of the things I mentioned just briefly was the idea of localized templates or localized data fields. And that's the idea that for different countries, I can store country-specific information. And here's a really great example of this. Under the global personal information section, so that's information that I want to collect on all of my employees, regardless of where they are. I have things like her name, gender, marital status, things like that. Underneath that, I have this country-specific piece where I'm recording things like veteran status and ethnic group. And this piece only prompts for me for employees that are located in the United States. And on the flip side, when I have employees who are located in Canada or Brazil or any other country of those 89 that we support, we will have their country-specific data fields as well. And if there's a country-specific data field that you need that isn't reflected there, then we can put custom fields in there for you as well. There are literally placeholders built in for you to put in your company-specific fields. Having a setup like this means that as an HR business partner, I don't need to remember what the specific data requirements are for this location, because the system will remember for me. So if I am a business partner supporting multiple locations, multiple countries, or if your organization has a shared services environment set up where there's a call center or help desk that supports your organization globally, we don't have to worry about training them on the ins and outs of country-specific data that we need to gather. The system's going to prompt that and prepare us for it as we go through. You'll see the same with national ID information. It's formatted specifically for the United States. If I wanted to come in and make an addition or an entry, and I chose another country, you can see that the options are dynamically changing and the formatting is being proposed according to that card type. So I don't need to worry how many numbers or characters or letters go into Canada's social insurance number. The format is proposed here for me. And if I were to try to put in something that did not align with that format, then I would be prompted to make a correction. So why is this important? If you're working on a system right now that just has an open field here, because you have a multinational employee base or a global employee base, and you need to be able to store everyone's national ID regardless of where they are, then that means you could get data that looks like this and have it be incorrect. And when it comes time to run payroll or to do tax forms at the end of the year, well, you've missed a step because obviously this piece of information doesn't align back to anyone. So having a field that can be validated and look for an appropriately formatted and entered number is extremely valuable, because you don't want your people to not be paid on time, to not have the correct tax calculations and forms at the end of the year. So right now we're looking at personal information, all these sections here, and it goes down even further. This is information that relates to our employee and helps us define them, irregardless of the role that they have within our organization. So they come in with this information. Some of it, like address, may change over time, but when they leave our organization, this information goes with them. This does not have anything to do with the work that they perform for our organization. We'll look at that just a moment in employment information. You can see here on the address information side, this is another section where we have some of those validation fields very heavily set up. So you can see that we currently have an address in San Mateo, California. I couldn't type in CA or abbreviate Cali. I selected from the drop-down list. And that means whenever I go to run a list to find all of my employees in California, I'm not going to have to worry about typos or shorthands or abbreviations. Everyone who has a home address in California has California listed in their state field. Things like this country that are absolutely essential, they have these little red asterisks next to them. That means it's a required field. So if first name and last name are required fields, I'm never going to be able to complete an entry and have incorrect or missing data, because the system is going to prompt me to fill in these mandatory pieces before I hit the save button. Now, one of the neat things about that validation and country-specific formatting is the ability to adjust it dynamically. So you can see I started with a US address. It always gives me the old value scratched out underneath so I know what the change was. My new value is now in the data field. But I went from city, state, and zip code to city, province, and postcode. And again, my drop-down list has shifted from the US states into the Canadian provinces. I'm never going to accidentally key in California or have something that's incorrect or missing. I'm sure those of you listening in who still use paper forms for some of their personal or job changes, you have, I'm sure, experienced on multiple occasions the submission of a form that's only halfway filled out. Or you're getting an employee transfer form and it doesn't have the new cost center. It has the new location, but it doesn't have the new manager, or those types of things. Our system with these built-in validities and checks is going to help guide for that information. So let me just scroll down and you can see a little bit more about what is typically stored in personal information. Again, these are pieces that we normally give employees self-service access to. So having an employee come in and update their emergency contacts is a really great way for us to have up-to-date emergency contacts. If we're relying on employees to come down to the office and fill out a form, that may or may not happen. But this is something that they can do right from their smart device or when they sit down at a laptop or a kiosk. Okay, so jumping over now to employment information. That's kind of the next main section in our profile. This is where we get data related to the employee and the role or roles that they perform for us. So things like job title, manager's name, pay grade, whether they're full-time, part-time, regular, temporary, salaried, hourly, those types of things. That helps us classify and organize them within our company. So we have a couple main blocks, typically job information, organizational information, so we can see structurally where they're located. And again, each of these portlets have libraries full of data fields, and we can show more or less. And depending on my role, I can see more or less. So you'll see here that Carla does not have little pencil buttons like she did on the employee side. So she is not able to promote herself or change her location, which makes sense. As an employee, we would not expect that to be an employee action. I will, however, pop open that history button there, and this allows us to see all of the job changes that Carla has had since she started working for us. And you can see she's been transferred, she's had promotions, all sorts of different things. So her entire job change history is included here for us. And new values are coded in green, and old values are scratched out in gray. So that means I can look record to record and see what changed at each particular transaction. And of course, it's all effective dated. So there's a start and a stop time to everything. So I could literally take each of these changes and piece together her full job record and her history here at our organization. Pretty cool when you think about it. On the job relationship side, this is something where we are able to indicate different people or persons within the system who have a relationship to Carla. So who is her HR rep? Who is her payroll manager? Who is her timekeeper? You know, these types of relationships that we want to indicate. It helps her to know who to contact when she has a question, but it also allows the system to utilize more effectively those workflows that we talked about during the slide deck. So how do I know who should approve a job or a pay change for Carla if I don't know who her HR manager is? Or if there's a timekeeper that needs to approve a time card in your scenario, the system needs to know who that is. And so I can establish these relationships here in her records and pull those people into workflow processes, give them access to things like reporting so that they can pull up the information that they need to do their day-to-day job. So again, going back to that whole idea of driving, you know, an easy-to-use user experience. Jumping ahead to compensation information. Some companies make this available, some companies hide this. We can store as little or as much as you want to here. So some of my customers use it just to give an indication of base salary, and they you know, keep the more advanced earnings and deductions on the payroll side. Some of my customers use this for absolutely everything, including deductions and garnishments and spot bonuses. So you can really get as complex here as you'd like to. You'll notice that things like range penetration and compa ratio have little question boxes next to them. And that means that there's either a tooltip available for us, or there's a calculation that's been performed in the background, adding up multiple payments, and the system will allow us to see the breakout of that particular total. So very helpful if you're an employee coming in to review, you know, what your potential total earning is when you combine bonuses and different payments. If you're a manager or a compensation specialist and you want to take a look at things like compa ratio and range penetration, all of these different attributes can be displayed and updated. When we look at things from the manager side in just a moment, I'll go in and show you how that particular piece can be dynamically updated from the manager self-service side. So another piece that's very popular is time. When are our employees working? How frequently? How many hours? For someone like Carla, who happens to be salaried, it may just be that we are keeping track of time off. For an employee who happens to be hourly, if they need to record their time on an hourly basis, we do offer a timesheet as well. So as a quick snapshot, I can see that I have some upcoming time off scheduled for days towards the end of this month, and I've got a half day pending approval in March. I have 12 days of vacation left and 9 days of sick left. So if I go in to administer my time off, it brings me up to a calendar view. And again, this is all accessible on your smart device if you're running our mobile app. So this is one of the more popular features to use on the mobile app. Because when you're sick at home in bed, you can put in for your sick request right from bed. So here in this scenario, Carla has allocations for vacation and sick day. Now you may have 10 different types of leaves that your employees are eligible, and that's fine. You can have as many as you'd like. You can also vary them based on location, job type, job level, by country. So each user, when they come in, will be presented with the leaves that are specific to their leave balances. And you can see here in the corner, I have this little eye icon, and that really just gives me an account overview, breakouts of my time type. I'm in a demo system, so I've got them open, for quite a long stretch. But typically they would go year over year, and you can see how many days I've either earned or have been allocated, what I've taken, what the balance is, and then what happens to be planned. So here on the calendar view, and I can scroll forward or backwards in time, I can see any leave that's currently been planned or approved for me. Any items with these little diagonal lines, those are all pending requests, and you can see that they're down here, pending approval from my manager, Alexander Thompson. If I have a request that I want to take, I can select and indicate the time. So I can, highlight, I can drag and drop. How I know that I'm going to be sick next March the 7th, conveniently the day after a half-day vacation, I don't know. But if I knew that in advance, I could certainly put it in advance. So a sick leave, you determine for each leave type what the quantity or the breakout may be. In this sample case, it's a half day or a full day. Some of my customers break that down hourly, especially for things like sick leave if you're coming in an hour late because you have a dentist appointment. So you can determine what those particular breakouts should be. And then you can put in your comments or notes to whoever is approving. Depending on your process, you may just have this be a point of entry. But most of my customers do put in some sort of workflow notification. And in this case, it is going off to Carla's manager, Alexander. And you can see that it is added to kind of her running list of requests. Some have been approved, some are pending. Now, if she changes her mind and decides that she wants to take a full day, she can come in and edit. If she decides she no longer wants that time off, she can come in and cancel. One of the really cool things is this team absence calendar that pulls in not only myself, but also my team. And so I can see where else people are taking off. So in this scenario, I can see, gosh, Alexander, my boss, he's taking off to 3 of the 4 days that I've requested off. That may be why he's delayed in approving my leave request. So maybe the two of us need to coordinate to make sure there's coverage from the other team members, or if not, perhaps arrange some sort of staggered break. But having that team view, especially if you're a manager going in and doing those approvals, just helps to make sure that you have, coverage when you need to have coverage. In this particular case, you'll notice that the weekends are blocked out. That's because these team members happen to work a 5 Monday through Friday schedule. If you had team members who work either in shifts or staggered schedules, things like that, that would be reflected on the calendar as well. Also, with things like the vacation or the sick, you can see that I've selected 3 days, but only 2 of them are work days according to my work schedule. So even though I've highlighted and selected 3, and I've indicated that I'll be gone for those 3 days, it knows only to remove 2 days from my allocated budget. And if I work, a disjointed shift, or there are holidays scattered in between, the system's going to take all of that into account when coming up with the total amount of time to request. Okay, let me jump back then to the basic people profile. We've got about 10 minutes left, and the last bit that I want to show you is on the manager self-service side. So I'm going to drop from looking at Carla's record to looking at the record of one of her team members. And I'm pulling up Marcus Hoff's record. And I can see some basic information. And I can drop into his employment information and see some different things than what Carla saw on her own record. And in this case, I have a pencil button where I didn't used to have a pencil button. And that's because I can propose job and compensation changes for Marcus. As his manager, I have the ability to go in and do self-service functions. I also have little alerts about things that are coming up, either something coming up in the future or something that's been put into the system that hasn't yet been approved. And you can control who has access to see those alerts. You may not want employees to be able to see alerts if you're doing a reorg or downsizing and you're putting that information in the system early. But for some things, maybe like pending address changes, that may be helpful. So again, I have my little clock here where I can go in and see the complete history. And as a manager, I can go in and see the different job changes that have taken place for Marcus. I can scroll down and see organizational information, employment details, things related to compensation. I can go in and view his time off, as well as administer his time off. So just really everything that I need here at my fingertips. And if I do decide that I want to make some sort of data change in the system, maybe I think he needs a pay increase, or I'm transferring him from, Carla's team to another manager's team, then I can either click on the edit button in the data portlet I hope to change, or I can come up here to this take action button. We saw that on the home page. We saw that on the org chart. And it's just a constant that appears from page to page where I have the ability to perform an action. And it only displays for me the actions that I have the ability to take on this particular employee. And if I want to put in for a job or a pay change for Marcus, then I can select that action and begin what I like to call a guided process. I'm here to change job or compensation. What is it that I would like to change? Well, I'm going to change Marcus's compensation. I could choose to do more than one. I can do a multi-select, that's fine as well. When would you like your changes to take effect? Again, everything is driven by those dates so that I can keep my historical records and my histories intact. I'm always going to be prompted for a date. And this just gives me a little snapshot of Marcus's current pay information. I can see annualized salary, total earning opportunity, comp ratio, all of this in US dollars. As I scroll down a little bit, I get to my planning sheet, if you will. Here is his current base salary. If I think he needs an increase, a 5% increase, I can come in and have the system calculate that for me. Again, the old value is scratched out here in gray. The new value shows in the field. I could also just type it in manually if I wanted to. If I'm transferring him up to Canada or over to China, and I'm going to pay him in a different currency, I can select a currency drop down from here. I've got one customer who operates in over 120 different countries. In fact, when I asked her, how many countries do you operate in? Her response was, all of them. And they use this tool and use it very heavily for compensation planning. And they are able to switch back and forth between their currencies, plan in a global currency, go back and forth to the employee's local currency very quickly without issue. So this really is a tool that can support quite well multinational and global organizations. So you'll see that single pay change that I made did a few things. It recalculated my comp ratio. It recalculated my total earning opportunity. It recalculated my annualized salary and range penetration. So these were all values that the system was calculating for me. Nothing was entered manually. Our system calculated fields. When I'm ready to submit my request, I come down here and click on the Save button. And the system does a check. It looks at every field on that page and it says, are all the required fields filled in? Are any formatted fields or fields that need to be validated formatted appropriately and validated? If there was something that was off, a required field that wasn't selected, or a value that was entered that didn't jive with the rest of the values on the screen, I would be prompted to go back and make an update to that record. But since I have all of the pieces filled out and filled out appropriately, I hit my save, and it's letting me know that this process will go through a workflow for approval. So I can't just go around in this scenario and give everyone pay changes, although I've had a few customers throughout the years do something similar. But in this scenario, it's going to go through an approval process, and I can come in and put notes. The approvers, it is going to Carla's manager, so up one level for approval, and then to the HR business partner for approval. So Alexander will get it first, and then Nancy will get it. And if at any point along the way, either one of them have changes or modifications to make, they can either make them directly based on their permissions, or kick it back to me and ask me to make the update. And this kind of note box travels with the workflow so that Alexander can put notes in, Nancy can put notes in, and they're reviewable. When I'm ready to submit that workflow, I can click confirm, and it will go out into the SuccessFactors system, notify Alexander, notify Nancy, and kick off that particular process. And when I do have a workflow change or a change like that, something that's pending approval, I'll get a notification alert like this, and I can go in and click on that particular task to see the details of that workflow request. So this is an old Family and Medical Leave Act from Marcus. Here he is, Marcus Hoff, 9 direct reports. It was initiated back September 6, 2016, and several months later, the manager went in and said, what's the holdup, Nancy? Because Nancy was next on the list for approval and she hasn't yet approved. And I can come in and put a note again and send that over to Nancy as well. Of course, in a real world scenario, I would have someone who's monitoring workflows to see any stalled requests. I can monitor them on my own. If I'm a workflow administrator, then I can redirect them or encourage the person that they're pending with to go in and complete their task. Okay, that brings us to the end of our live demonstration. As a wrap up, we learned today that Employee Central is SAP SuccessFactors cloud-based core HR solution. It can help you have good, clean, valid data in the system. Those fields that gather the data can have indicators, validity checks, business rules, helping you and helping your users enter and maintain good, clean data. And then those entries of data, whether it's by an employee, by a manager, by an HR business partner, can be augmented with workflows so that those of us on the HR side are still aware of the proposed data changes and can still kind of have an overview and assist when needed. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining us and learning a little bit about Employee Central. If you have additional questions, you can contact me by email or type your question into the question box and we will follow up with you offline. And I'm sorry again that we missed those first few slides. If you're just dying to see my intro slide with my picture and the agenda topics for today, please go out to hr.com where you can download this complete presentation. And now I will turn the line back over to Sherry.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. I want to thank you and Illumity HCM for this very informative webcast that you presented for us today. Thanks so much. Much appreciated. As Rebecca had said, the archived recording will be available on the hr.com site within 24 hours. We here at hr.com, as well as Illumity HCM, appreciate your feedback, so please do take a couple of moments to fill out the exit survey that will open once the webcast has ended. This does conclude our webcast. Thanks everyone for joining us.